So I just learned something quite interesting about slow and just slow action rods. This is my Ice Blues by HT. It's a very slow action, but it's got a very quick tip on it. Now, title of this video, why slow action rod is important for barbless hooks. Now, over by where I live, barbless hooks aren't mandatory, but in Canada, I think they're mandatory in like Manitoba and areas in that region, I think. And why it's important. So I watched this YouTube series called Uncut Angling. Check them out on YouTube. I'll try and link them in the description. And if I can't, just type in Uncut Angling and he'll pop up. Anyway, I watch his channel and he's in Canada, based in Canada, and barbless hooks are mandatory there. Well, he always has slow action rods for barbless hooks. This is why. I was just sitting here thinking about it. Like, okay, we're gonna do an experiment here. I have a 1/16 ounce slender spoon on here, rigged up with a spring bobber on my Celsius rod. Okay. So, see that spring bobber moving? It's going. Ready? Now watch the spoon. I am barely moving that rod tip. I'm barely moving that rod tip here. I'll back up so you can see better. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm just barely moving that rod tip. But that spring bobber is going because of the weight of the spoon. And me barely moving that rod tip gives that spoon a very fluttery action, or a very up and down, straightforward action. That tip is kind of slow. And here. Now if I take that off, if I undo my spring bobber here, see I have a permanent spring bobber rig. I super glued it to the tip of my rod. And yeah. So, here. If I undo the spring bobber, I'll show you here. Also, what's cool about the spring bobber is that you can, since it's super glued to the tip, you can just slide it down and put it right under the tip of your rod there. So it just slides down that thing and it sits right there. But yeah, this rod is very kind of slower, kind of a load rod. And another thing that Aaron Weeb talks about in Uncut Angling is you want a slow action rod because it pins the fish. That is so important for barbless hooks, and he talks about that in I think almost every single one of his videos. And I'll show you here in a minute. I'll do the same small little twitches with the rod tip. That way you don't think I'm siding with anybody here. But I'm pretty good at tying knots, so shut up. Watch this. I'm doing the same little rod twitches. Same small rod twitches. Look how little that spoon is moving. So if you have a stiffer rod with a stiff tip, you're not going to get a lot of action. But say you have a fish on. If let's say the spring bobber is deployed. Say the fish is fighting. There's going to be so much load here. I have a slow action rod. this rod. It's a combination between the length of your rod and just the overall slow. This is an ultralight, but that has so much load in the rod to where if something's hanging on to it, say like a bluegill or whatever, that's not coming off because it doesn't have a very strong backbone, but what it does have is the load. Like, look how much that rod is bent. I mean, this rod can bend infinitely. You can almost touch the reel. I don't want to test it, but and it just goes to show it's kind of complicated on my end trying to explain it, but if you have a slow action rod and that fish is dogging, just dogging, you have a lot of power here. It's not very strong, but it's power. If you have a shorter rod, say on this Berkeley amp ice, 28-inch. This is a 28-inch rod. That's a 26-inch in my ice blue. If you have a shorter rod, that's going to load up a lot faster. Say, a fish is fighting, it's loading up a lot faster. Where if you have the longer rod here, it's slow because it has the line and the energy has to transfer through all the guides and get to the max loadout, excuse me. So it's a combination between the length and the power. Action. See, this is a slow action rod. Take a shot every time I say slow. Slow action rod with a fast action tip. The tip itself is kind of sturdy, but it's all in here. Because you watch, first place that bends is in here, right there. So, stiff. Here. It bends at that little base there. And it goes all the way through the rod. So if you're fighting a fish and you have your drag set pretty loose, that length of the rod is going to hold the power and pin the fish. Getting back to the barbless thing, see, I don't run barbless hooks because we have some very, very finicky fish here and strong. I think you see the barb there, but I don't run barbless hooks. But if I did and I had to, this is a great rod for it. Paired with 2-pound line with a Celsius Blizzard inline reel. It came with this rod, the Celsius Blizzard. I just like to swap reels. Anyway, getting back to the barbless hook thing, what can I use to demonstrate that? I don't have a barbless hook readily available for this demonstration. But if I did, here, I might have to use a piece of fabric or something. I got a box I can use. Maybe that's not a good idea. I'm at a loss. Paper. This paper. Hook. Where'd you go? Here. Okay. Let's get close here. This is not a barbless hook. It'll go into the paper. Say this is the fish's mouth. Go in. And I'm sure if you've gotten hooked past the barb, you know what I'm talking about. But for those of you who haven't, that barb is preventing the hook from coming out of the paper. So you see the resistance from the hook transferring into the paper. it tears right out because it's paper. But say that was a fish's mouth, that wouldn't come out as easy as if you had a barbless hook. I don't have pliers. Send help. No. If I did, I'd pinch the barb down and show you. But if that barb wasn't so aggressive, per se, that hook would easily just pop out. You'd imagine. Say, goes into your fingers. I'm not going to demonstrate that. That'd hurt. But goes into your finger, it just right out. Non-barbless hooks, that would suck, and I know that feeling. I'll do like a live stream at some point this year and talk about fishing stories. But yeah, that's kind of barbless hooks broken down, kind of explaining the slow rod equation paired with barbless hooks equals fish pin. Pinning, fish pin, I don't know, whatever. But you get it. Like, if you actually take time to think about it, you'll have an equation of things adding up to sense. Not saying I'm smart, not saying y'all are dumb. Y'all are probably smarter than me. I'm not very smart at all. I don't know how I've made it through life. No. Yeah. Slow action rod and barbless hooks equals a fast action rod and barbed hooks. Say, yeah, you have kind of a faster action, very quick rod, like that Berkeley amp. If I can get that in there. That I demonstrated in 5 minutes ago. Here. Oh, no. This is a very kind of quicker, because it's shorter. You have a short rod that's going to have very quick. It's just... It also depends on kind of what the rod is made of. I have no idea what these rods are made of. When I cut the tip off of... which one? Here. It's right here. When I cut the tip off of this one, it's got kind of a broken tip, there was a bunch of fibers that came out of the actual rod blank itself. And I was like, what are those? And I just, still to this day, I can't explain what those are. But this is another Ice Blues. Let's just show you a lot of cutting down on this rod. This rod has been cut and broken twice because my neighbor gave it to me. He didn't ice fish anymore, and the very little ice fishing that he didn't use the rod, so he just gave it to me. This is the same rod as that one, except this one's a light action. Not a very quick tip on it, and if it did, all that backbone is right almost in the middle of the rod. So you can imagine what that would look like fully loaded. Kinda awkward looking. But yeah, this one I just kinda painted. Go on my Instagram, I showed you what I did to it. It's got glow painted tip with nail polish painted. Guides are pink. Yeah, it's just for the meme, don't worry. Paired with a 13 fishing white noise reel. I don't know. It's a combo. I had no idea where the rod went. It came with this rod, so I used it. Yeah, it's an Ice Blues 36-inch light with a very awkward rod. And I split the handle. Poor job there. Don't worry, I know I did a bad job paired with like 6-pound line going into 2. More on that later. But yeah, it just, this rod too, this is my micro, or Mr. Micro ultralight rod. But you can see how it's got kind of a faster tip, but it's all very backbone, very slow, very loading rod. Helps, because if a fish, say a fish were to, you know, and that's important for open water too, not just ice fishing. Say a fish just come running towards you and you're trying to keep up with it, and you were still reeling with it, that rod is still going to be semi-bent because of that fast tip. That fast tip is going to detect more motion than, you know. I hope you guys are trying to understand what I'm trying to explain, because it's kind of hard to explain. I'm not the smartest person in the world, I told you, but what I do know is complicated stuff. Not really. 2-year-old could figure it out. Yeah, that's just kind of the basics on a slow, I shouldn't say basics, it's not very basic at all, but a slow rod gives you more pin and load. Write that down on a piece of paper. It's complicated, I know. But yeah, once I finally started to understand it, it's like, oh, I get it. Took me 8 years to frickin' figure it out. Didn't, but I figured it out. Yeah. I hope you made some sense of what I was trying to say. If you didn't, that's alright. Go talk to Aaron Weeb about it, because I can't explain stuff very good. See you next time.